Welcome again to Math 800 Pre-Algebra. Today we are doing section 4.6, Exponents, Order of Operations, and Complex Fractions. Our objectives. First is to simplify fractions with exponents. Second is to use the order of operations with fractions. And third is to simplify complex fractions. We will start with simplifying fractions with exponents. Simplify negative 1/2 to the third power. Notice that the negative is inside the parentheses. This means when you have negative 1/2 to the third power with parentheses, that you are taking the entire parenthesis set and multiplying it with itself 3 times. This means you have 3 separate negatives. The first 2 negatives multiply out to be a positive. Negative 1/2 times negative 1/2 is positive 1/4. Then multiply the 1/4 and the negative 1/2 and you get negative 1/8. So our final answer is negative 1/8. Simplify 3/4 to the second power times 2/3 to the third power. 3/4 to the second power means we're going to have 3/4 multiplied with itself 2 times, times 2/3 to the third power means we'll have 2/3 3 times. So we have 2 factors of 3/4 and 3 factors of 2/3. Now to multiply, we could multiply all the way across, but this is going to give us a big number that will be annoying to simplify. It is easier to leave it in its broken down form and just cancel out what we know is the same in the top and bottom. This leaves us with a 1 overall on top and a 2 times 3 or 6 in the bottom. Therefore, 3/4 squared times 2/3 cubed simplifies out to be 1/6. Now let's review our order of operations. The first step is to work within the parentheses or other grouping symbols. Be careful with the parentheses. Sometimes there's stuff to do inside of them, but sometimes the parentheses are there simply to indicate a multiplication or a negative number. After you've done anything inside parentheses that you can do, next you will simplify expressions with exponents. Once you've done that, you will move on to multiplication and division as they occur left to right. So if a division is on the left, you do it first. Multiplication and division go together, left to right. And lastly, we do any additions and subtractions as they occur left to right. A quick note about parentheses. When you are working within parentheses, if there is more than one thing to do, you still follow order of operations. So if there is a multiplication and an addition inside the parentheses, you would start with the multiplication. Here's an example. Simplify negative 1/3 plus 1/2 times 4/5. There is a set of parentheses around the 4/5, but in this case they're only there to indicate a multiplication. We can't actually do the division 4 divided by 5. So we will go on to our next step, which would be exponents. However, there are no exponents, so that moves us on to the third step, which is multiplying and dividing. There is a multiplication, namely 1/2 times 4/5, which is 4/10. It is up to you whether you want to simplify now or whether you want to wait and simplify at the end. It really doesn't matter. In this case, we'll wait and just do all our simplifying at the end if necessary. Now we need to add negative 1/3 plus 4/10. The LCD is going to be 30, so multiply negative 1/3 top and bottom by 10, and multiply 4/10 top and bottom by 3. We get negative 10/30 plus 12/30, which simplifies to 2/30. Which adds to 2/30. 2/30 can be simplified, divide both the top and bottom by 2, and we get 1/15. So our final answer is 1/15. Another example. Simplify negative 2 plus parentheses 1/4 minus 3/2 parentheses squared. We will start with our parentheses. 1/4 minus 3/2. The common denominator is 4, so we multiply 3/2 top and bottom by 2. We get 1/4 minus 6/4, which is negative 5/4. You could convert this to a mixed number. However, an exponent is multiplication, and multiplication requires improper fractions. So it is generally easier to leave all of your numbers as either whole numbers if possible or fractions. Do not work with mixed numbers in order of operations. They don't get along well with multiplication and division and exponents, so it is easier to leave everything as improper fractions, or if given a mixed number, to convert it to an improper fraction. Now that we've finished with the parentheses, we'll move on to our next step, which is exponents. Negative 5/4 squared is negative 5/4 times negative 5/4, which is 25/16. Notice a negative times a negative becomes a positive. Lastly, we'll add. Negative 2 plus 25 over 16. Recall that negative 2 is the same as negative 2 over 1. Our common denominator is 16, so multiply top and bottom by 16. We get negative 32 over 16 plus 25 over 16, which is negative 7 over 16. This is in simplified form, so you are done. Your final answer is negative 7 divided by 16, or negative 7/16. Lastly, we will now simplify complex fractions. A complex fraction is just another way to write a division. So this fraction bar right here is simply a division. So negative 4/5 over negative 3/10 is the same as saying negative 4/5 divided by negative 3/10. Now we just do our division. So we are going to change the division to a multiplication and multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. Notice the first fraction stayed as it was. To multiply this, you could go across. You'd have negative 40 over 15, and then you would have to simplify that. Or simply break the numbers down to start with and simplify right away. We get 8/3 or 2 2/3. Both 8/3 and 2 2/3 are simplified. I would accept either as a final answer. So 8/3 is just as acceptable as 2 2/3. When you are working with MyMathLab, if the answer says that it needs to be an integer or a fraction, you must enter the improper fraction. If you enter the mixed number, MathXL will mark you wrong because it is not a fraction, it's a mixed number. Our last example. Simplify the complex fraction, parenthesis 2/3 squared over 6. We will rewrite this fraction as a division. So we have 2/3 squared divided by 6. We still have to follow order of operations, which says to do exponents first. So 2/3 squared is 4/9. Now we will divide by multiplying by the reciprocal. Again, you could multiply straight across and get 4 over 54, but it is easier to break the numbers down and do your simplifying here. We wind up with 2 times 1 on top and 9 times 3 in the bottom, or 2/27. This cannot be converted to a mixed number because it is a proper fraction. That concludes section 4.6. Your next step is to complete the worksheet for section 4.6. Then check the key for that worksheet or come to class and we will go over it. And after that, complete the online homework for section 4.6 through MyMathLab. Once you have completed everything for 4.6, you can start on section 4.7.